I knew something was wrong the moment the room went silent. The clink of cutlery stopped. The laughter died mid-echo. And then my son, my own flesh and blood, leaned forward across the Christmas table and shouted the words that split my world in two. If you're not paying the bills, then get out of my house. For a heartbeat, the world froze. The guests stared at me, wide-eyed. His wife smirked behind her wine glass. And I felt every memory, every sacrifice, every year of motherhood crush against my chest like a collapsing ceiling. I wasn't expecting a perfect evening. Life rarely gives those after your children grow up and start pretending they don't need you, but I wasn't prepared for humiliation. Not tonight. Not on Christmas. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand the truth. I didn't walk into that dinner looking for a fight. I walked in hoping to hold my family together. Instead, I watched it crumble like dry snow melting off a warm roof. If you're reading this, stay with me. My story might remind you of someone you love or someone you've lost. And before we go further, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own story in the comments. You never know who your words might heal. The night had started with cautious anticipation. My son, Daniel, invited me for Christmas dinner for the first time in 3 years. No explanations for the silence. No apology for the cold distance. Just a message, short, stiff, formal. Dinner at 6. Don't be late. The kind of message you'd send to a stranger. Not your mother, still. I put on my nicest red sweater, wrapped a small gift for him and his wife, and walked into that house with hope clinging to me like frost. The house smelled like roasted turkey, sage stuffing, and cinnamon candles, things I used to make when he was a child. Memories pressed against me from all directions, trying to warm me. But the warmth didn't reach him. Not anymore. His wife, Melissa, didn't help. She greeted me with a handshake instead of a hug. A handshake. At Christmas. For the woman who raised her husband. I should have known then. Dinner was served. Tension was too. Every time I asked a simple question about work, about their plans, about life, Melissa rolled her eyes as if I were asking for a loan instead of conversation. Daniel barely looked at me. The guests, her friends, not mine, whispered behind their napkins. Sneaking glances like I was some unwelcome ghost haunting the room. Then came the moment everything shifted. I made a small comment, soft, harmless. Something about how they'd changed the layout of the house. Apparently, that was enough. Melissa leaned back in her chair, smirking with a kind of polished cruelty that didn't come from anger, but comfort in knowing the person next to her would defend her no matter what. Of course we change things, she said loudly. We pay the mortgage now. Her friends chuckled. Daniel didn't protest. The knife twisted quietly in my chest. I forced a tight smile. I'm glad you're making it your own. That was when Daniel slammed his hand against the table, rattling the silverware. Stop acting like you did us some big favor. He snapped. If you're not helping with the bills, then don't come here complaining. And if you don't like how we run things, his voice rose, sharp as breaking glass, then get out. Just get out. The room gasped. Someone dropped a fork. Melissa hid a grin behind her champagne, and I felt something inside me go very, very still. I looked at my son, my baby boy whom I once rocked to sleep, who clung to my shirt when thunderstorms scared him, who whispered, "Mommy, don't leave," on his first day of school. Where had that boy gone? Who replaced him with this stranger? I didn't argue. I didn't shout back. I didn't defend myself, because something deeper, colder, more solid than anger settled into me. A truth I should have faced years ago. I wasn't wanted here. So I stood up from the table, tucked my chair in slowly, and without a word, I walked down the hallway toward the guest room where I'd left my things. Behind me, I heard Melissa laugh. Loud, cruel, triumphant. The guests whispered. Did she really leave? Someone murmured. Good for him. And my son said nothing. Not even my name. In the quiet of the guest room, I folded my clothes with shaking hands. I zipped my suitcase shut, the sound slicing through the stillness like a verdict. My vision blurred, but I didn't wipe the tears. Tears were the only honest part of this night. As I lifted my bag, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked older than I remembered. But I also looked done begging, done bending, done giving. When I stepped back into the living room, the conversation halted again. Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. Melissa crossed her arms, satisfied. Her friends watched like they were witnessing a live drama. I took a slow breath. The kind that tastes like finality. I won't stay anywhere I'm not respected, I said softly. And after tonight, I won't support anyone who treats me like this. Melissa scoffed. Daniel stiffened. A ripple of discomfort passed through the room. Then I said the words I knew would land like ice. From this moment on, you're cut off. Dead silence. Even the candles flickered like they heard something forbidden. Melissa's face drained of color. Daniel finally looked at me, really looked at me, but too late. I felt my voice strengthen, rising from a place I didn't know I still possessed. I've helped you for years, I said. Paid the bills you wouldn't. Covered the mistakes you hid. Protected you both. But not anymore. You wanted me out. I stepped backward toward the door, so I'm leaving. And you'll live without my help, my support, and my money. Gasps. A stifled shriek from Melissa. And Daniel whispering, Mom. Wait. But I didn't. Not this time. I opened the front door. Cold air rushed in, brushing my face like the beginning of freedom. And as I stepped out into the night. As I closed the door behind me, a single thought echoed through me. This was only the beginning. Because what I found waiting for me outside would change everything. I didn't sleep at all that night. Not because of the shouting. Not because of the humiliation. But because something Adam said just before he stormed off kept echoing in my head. The kind of sentence that makes a mother's blood turn cold. He said it quietly, like a threat meant only for me. If you open your mouth about anything, you'll regret it. Why would he say that? What did he think I knew? And why was Lily avoiding my eyes like she was guilty of something I hadn't uncovered yet? The questions clawed at my mind long after everyone had gone to bed. I sat alone in the guest room, staring at the faint glow leaking beneath the door, listening to the creaks of the old house settling. A part of me wanted to run another part, wanted to tear the entire family open and see what secrets were hiding behind their polished smiles. Before I begin, if you're following this journey with me, it would mean the world if you liked this story. Subscribed for the next chapters and shared your thoughts in the comments. Your support gives me strength to keep telling the truth. The silence in that house wasn't peaceful. It was thick, heavy, like everyone was holding their breath at once. My chest felt tight from the weight of words left unsaid. I wrapped the thin blanket around myself and walked toward the window. The moonlight brushed against the driveway, faint shadows stretching across the empty lawn. It was calm, too calm. Almost as if the world outside was pretending nothing explosive had just happened inside. I tried closing my eyes. But my mind replayed the scene of Adam shoving me. Lily's face turning white. The guests pretending they saw nothing. I could still hear the sound of my suitcase wheels dragging across the hardwood floor after I decided to leave. But I didn't leave. Something pulled me back. Something darker. Almost instinctive. Maybe it was a mother's intuition. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe I already knew deep down that Adam's outburst wasn't just anger. It was panic. I pressed my palms against the cold window pane, trying to steady my breath. Then I heard it. A faint creak at the end of the hallway. Soft, hesitant. The kind of sound made by someone trying not to be heard. My chest tightened as footsteps approached my door, slow and careful. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I watched the doorknob as it twitched. Just once. Then whoever it was stepped away. I wasn't imagining things. Someone had been standing right outside my room. I opened the door quietly and peered into the hallway. Nothing. Just the dim nightlight glowing blue against the wall. But the air felt disturbed, like someone had moved through it just seconds before. I followed the faint whisper of sound down the stairs. Halfway down, I heard voices low, tense. Urgent. Adam. And Lily. I stopped where the shadows hid me and leaned slightly forward. We can't let her find out, Adam hissed. She's my mother, Lily whispered back, shaky. She has a right to... No, she has a right to nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing. If she opens that box, we're done. My heart slammed so hard I felt it in my throat. What box? What were they hiding from me? I covered my mouth with my hand to keep from gasping. My fingers trembled, and suddenly, so did the staircase beneath me. One wooden step creaked under my weight. Adam whipped his head around. Who's there? He barked. I froze. If I moved, he'd hear me. If I stayed, he would come up the stairs. Lily whispered, Adam, stop. It's probably nothing. But her voice was trembling. And I knew she didn't believe what she was saying. Footsteps. Heavy. Purposeful. Coming my way. I backed into the wall. Pressing myself into the shadows, forcing my breathing to quiet. My heartbeat thudded in my ears so loudly I was sure he could hear it. He stopped at the bottom of the stairs, eyes scanning upward. His silhouette stretched across the wall, long and sharp. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, praying he would turn around. After a few tense seconds, Lily spoke again. Please, Adam. Can we just go to sleep? You're scaring me. There was a beat of silence. Then Adam muttered something under his breath and walked away. I exhaled shakily and slipped back into the guest room. Closing the door without making a sound, I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers tangling in the blanket as my mind raced. What were they talking about? What were they so afraid I'd discover? And what box did they mean? Then I remembered something. Something I hadn't thought of in years. The closet in Lily's old bedroom. A loose board under the carpet near the corner. A place she used to hide things as a child: notes, diary pages, keepsakes. If she passed that habit into adulthood, maybe something was still hidden there. The thought pulsed through me until I could no longer ignore it. I slipped out of the room again, quiet as breath, and walked toward the end of the hall. Lily's old bedroom door was cracked open. I pushed it slowly. Moonlight spilled across the room, touching everything with a pale blue glow: the old dresser, her childhood bookshelf, the quilt I made her when she was 12. Still folded neatly at the foot of the bed. I knelt in the corner and lifted the carpet. My hands shook so badly I could barely grip it. The board came up easily. Underneath was an envelope. Thick. Stuffed. Sealed tight. My stomach clenched. My fingers hovered over it, trembling. Whatever was inside. They were terrified I'd find it. The moment I opened that envelope, I whispered to myself. My breath hitched as I slid my thumb beneath the flap. Paper rustled. Secrets shifted. And then I heard footsteps behind me. Slow. Deliberate. Shadow fell across the floor. I turned and froze completely. Because standing in the doorway, watching me with cold, unreadable eyes, was Adam. Adam's eyes were cold, unreadable, like ice hiding a storm beneath. I froze where I stood, my fingers trembling slightly over the envelope I had uncovered. The air between us felt thick, heavy, as though the entire house had stopped breathing. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant tick of the clock, magnified the tension until it seemed unbearable. Mom? What are you doing? His voice was low, cautious, but edged with anger. There was fear there too, though he would never admit it. The fear of exposure. The fear of the truth finally catching up with him. I didn't answer. I let the silence stretch, each second dragging like an eternity. I could feel my pulse in my temples. Memories flashed across my mind. The scraped knees I kissed better. The countless nights I stayed awake while he slept peacefully. The years of sacrifices that had built the foundation of his life. And now, in one devastating instant, all of it seemed invisible to him. I was just, he began, his words trembling under the weight of the unspoken. But I interrupted him with a calmness that surprised both him and me. No, Adam, you've been hiding from me for years. Tonight, I finally found out why. Adam's jaw clenched. His face went pale, a subtle reflection of panic masking as anger. The envelope between us felt heavy, almost alive, as though it contained the power to change everything. I slowly slid it out of my hand and carefully unfolded the paper inside. The handwriting was unfamiliar, precise, formal. My name was written clearly, boldly, in black ink. As I unfolded it fully, my chest tightened. Inside were pages of truth. Every lie they had told me, every attempt to exclude me, every manipulation to make me feel small, invisible, unnecessary. Adam's breath hitched. He took a step forward, but I didn't flinch. The fear that had gripped me for years was replaced by something entirely new. Clarity. I saw him as he was now. Not the child I once knew, not the boy I had rocked to sleep, but the man who had allowed greed, fear, and pride to turn him into someone I barely recognized. You. He whispered, barely audible, but his voice betrayed panic. I held the envelope firmly, feeling its weight as if it were a shield, a declaration. I knew something was wrong. Something you've been hiding. And now I know the truth. No more lies, Adam. No more pretending. I won't allow you to manipulate me anymore, not tonight. Not ever. Adam's face twitched. His lips opened and closed like a fish out of water. He wanted to argue, to convince me, to intimidate me, but the words didn't come. I stepped closer, letting the envelope fall onto the floor deliberately. It landed with a soft thud, like a gavel marking the end of a long trial. Do you know what this is? I asked softly, my voice calm, almost eerily so. This is every excuse, every lie, every attempt to erase me from your life. And it ends tonight. He opened his mouth again, but I didn't give him the chance to speak. I continued, my voice growing stronger with each word. I raised you. I gave you every opportunity I could. I worked through sleepless nights and endless days to make sure you had a life you could be proud of. And this is how you repay me. By humiliating me in front of your guests. By letting your wife mock me at my own son's Christmas dinner. The room felt smaller. The shadows seemed to stretch toward me as if even the walls were leaning in to hear my words. Adam took a step closer, and instinctively, I stepped back, keeping the envelope between us. You don't understand. He shouted finally, voice cracking. It's not like that. But I cut him off. No, Adam, I understand perfectly. You don't want me here. You never did. I straightened my shoulders, and for the first time in years, I felt my own power, my own presence, as a mother who refused to be silenced. I could argue. I could plead. I could beg you to let me stay. But I won't. Not tonight. Not ever again. He swallowed hard. His face paled further. His hands were shaking slightly, betraying the calm he was desperately trying to project. For years I had been the one afraid. Afraid of losing him. Afraid of the consequences of speaking up. Afraid of the wrath of a son I had raised with love. But now the fear belonged to him. I turned slowly, feeling the weight of every gaze in the room. The silent judgment of the guests. The smug satisfaction of his wife, and I walked toward the front door. Each step echoed like a drumbeat of justice, each one a declaration of my autonomy. As I reached the door, I paused, letting the cold December air rush in and brush against my face. The envelope was clutched tightly in my hand once again. I could see Adam behind me, frozen, uncertain. This time, the power had shifted. I won't stay anywhere I'm not respected, I said softly, yet firmly. And from this moment on, you are cut off from me. Your games, your lies, your manipulation, they end tonight. Melissa gasped. Adam's face flickered with something I couldn't quite name. Fear? Guilt? Perhaps both. I opened the door fully and stepped outside. The icy air wrapped around me like freedom. My hands trembled, but the trembling was not from fear, it was from the surge of strength coursing through me. I walked down the driveway, each step a rebellion, each breath a reminder that I had chosen myself. The snow crunched under my boots, crisp and final, echoing like a new beginning. Behind me, the voices of Adam, Melissa, and their guests faded into the warmth of the house, leaving me alone with the night, the envelope, and the truth I now possessed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed in the guest room, the envelope on my lap, and read every word again and again. Every lie, Every omission, every cruel act meticulously documented. I felt the anger rise, but I let it simmer. Anger without control is useless. Power without control is meaningless. Then, just as I was beginning to process everything, I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Someone was coming down the hallway. My heart slammed in my chest. I pressed myself against the wall, clutching the envelope as though it were armor. Adam's voice whispered, tense and sharp, "We can't let her find out. She mustn't open it." Another voice, trembling, "She has a right to know, Adam. She's my mother." Right to know? Adam snapped. "She has a right to nothing. Nothing at all. If she opens that box, we're finished." The words chilled me. Box? What box? What else were they hiding from me? My curiosity burned hotter than my fear. I waited, silent, unmoving, listening as their whispers faded down the hall. I slipped from my hiding spot and moved carefully toward Lily's old bedroom. My hands shook as I lifted the carpet, revealing the familiar loose board she used to hide her treasures as a child. Beneath it lay a thick envelope, sealed tight. My fingers trembled as I lifted it. This was what they feared I would find. The paper inside might destroy relationships, expose lies, or shatter illusions. But I had waited too long to fear the truth. I opened the envelope slowly, deliberately. A rustle of paper sounded like a drumbeat in my ears. My heart raced. Then footsteps. Someone was coming. Adam, standing there in the doorway, eyes cold, unreadable. This time I wasn't afraid. I was ready because for the first time in years, I wasn't just a mother. I was a woman who had found her voice, and nothing, not Adam, not Melissa, not anyone, would take it from me again. And as I held the envelope close, I realized that this night the humiliation, the betrayal, the revelation was only the beginning. The real story, the real truth was about to unfold. I stared at Adam, his shadow looming in the doorway, as if trying to swallow me whole. My fingers still clutched the envelope, trembling not from fear, but from anticipation. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, to hand it back, to walk away. But something deeper, something primal wouldn't let me. This belongs to me," I said firmly, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Adam's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing. "You shouldn't be touching that," he hissed, stepping closer, but I didn't move. I refused to back down. I had waited years for this moment, and no threat, no fear, no intimidation would make me turn away now. "You've been lying to me for years," I said. "Hiding things, excluding me, treating me like I don't matter. I deserve to know the truth." Adam's hands trembled slightly. He swallowed hard. "Mom, it's complicated. You don't understand." I shook my head slowly. "I understand more than you think. And tonight, I'm done pretending I don't see the truth." I opened the envelope fully. Inside were photographs, receipts, documents, and letters. My eyes widened as I realized the depth of what had been concealed from me. Each paper, each note, each photograph told a story of betrayal that cut deeper than any words could. There were receipts showing expenses that I had been covering unknowingly for years, money I thought I had given as gifts, but which had instead been used to pad their savings. Letters revealed lies about my inheritance, twisted truths about my contributions to family events, and a hidden account that I had never been told about. And then there were the photographs. My stomach turned as I saw them, moments captured when I had been intentionally excluded, orchestrated to humiliate me. Christmases, birthdays, anniversaries, events I had once thought were shared in love and celebration had been staged to make me feel small, powerless, irrelevant. I felt a surge of anger, sadness, and disbelief all at once. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The years of hurt, the humiliation, the betrayal, it all rushed back like a flood. Adam's voice cut through my thoughts. "Mom, you don't understand. If they find out, they..." I asked sharply, "Who? Melissa? You? Both of you?" He hesitated. And that hesitation was all the confirmation I needed. I was right. I had been betrayed by the very people I trusted most. I took a deep breath and stood taller, the envelope clutched in my hand like armor. I trusted you, Adam. I loved you unconditionally. And you've repaid me with lies and manipulation. But this ends now. No more secrets. No more hiding. Adam's expression shifted. Fear, guilt, panic, once. He knew that with this envelope, I held the power. The power to expose everything. The power to reclaim what had been taken from me. The power to ensure they could never hurt me again. I turned slowly, walking toward the door, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and exhilaration. I need time, I said. Time to understand, time to plan, time to decide how to move forward. And you won't interfere. Adam opened his mouth to argue, but I didn't wait. I left the room, the envelope pressed against my chest. Every step echoed with finality. Outside, the night air was sharp, bracing, and liberating. For the first time in years, I felt alive, not just surviving but ready to fight. To claim my life back. As I sat in my car, the envelope resting on the passenger seat, I realized that this was only the beginning. The secrets I had uncovered were like pieces of a puzzle, and somewhere among them lay the key to understanding the full extent of their betrayal, and the way to finally reclaim my dignity, my respect, and my life. But even as I planned my next move, a creeping unease settled over me. If Adam had been this desperate to keep me from seeing the envelope, it meant there was something bigger, something far more dangerous, and I had a feeling that uncovering it would put me in ways I had never imagined, face to face with the darkest truths of my family. For now I drove silently, the street lights casting fleeting shadows across the envelope. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing: I would not be intimidated, I would not be silenced, and I would not be made invisible again. As I parked outside my apartment and stepped into the warm glow of my living room, I took a deep breath. The envelope waited on the table in front of me. Its presence was both terrifying and exhilarating. I was ready to open it, to face whatever truths were inside, and finally, to reclaim the power that had been denied to me for far too long. The night stretched on. Outside, the city slept, oblivious to the storm that was brewing in my life. Inside, I sat in silence, contemplating the next step. The envelope was more than paper. It was a declaration of change, a symbol of justice, and the first step toward the reckoning that my family would soon face. Because what I discovered inside that envelope would change everything. And once the truth was revealed, nothing, no lies, no manipulation, no fear would ever control me again. And so, with a trembling hand but a determined heart, I opened it. The envelope sat before me on the table, weighty, ominous. A tangible symbol of every lie, every betrayal, every secret that had been hidden from me for years. My hands shook as I reached for it, but not with fear. This trembling was anticipation, the kind that comes when you know everything is about to change. I opened the first sheet. My eyes immediately widened. It was a ledger, detailed, meticulous, and damning. Every financial transaction, every payment I thought had been a gift, every expense I had covered for Adam and Melissa, it was all listed, with dates, amounts, and notes in a handwriting that was both precise and cold. They had tracked everything. Every sacrifice I made, every effort I gave, had been catalogued, to be used against me. I felt anger rise, hot and suffocating, but I forced myself to breathe. This was power now, not just pain, knowledge, control. The ledger wasn't just proof of manipulation. It was proof of how they had relied on me while pretending I didn't matter. The next papers were letters. Short, polite on the surface, but underneath, venomous. Lies about me, about my intentions, about the money I had supposedly withheld. Lies meant to turn friends, family, and even me against myself. The meticulous planning, the years of deceit, it was staggering. And then I saw the photographs. My stomach dropped. They weren't just snapshots, they were evidence. Pictures of me at gatherings I thought were shared in joy, but had actually been staged to humiliate me. My discomfort, my confusion, my attempts to speak or participate, they had been captured. My discomfort, my confaptured, my confusion, my attempts to speak or participate, they had been captured, catalogued, and twisted into mockery. I swallowed hard. The depth of their betrayal struck me like a physical blow. And yet, within the despair was clarity. I finally saw what I had been fighting against for years, why the distance had grown, why Adam had been so cruel. It wasn't just indifference, it was calculated. And then I found it. The final sheet, folded tightly, the last piece of the puzzle. My eyes scanned the words, and my breath caught in my throat. It was a will, one I had never been told existed. Not just a will, but a document that detailed the inheritance, the family assets and the control of property I had helped build and maintain. And in the margins, notes in a handwriting I recognized Adam's handwriting. They had plotted to exclude me, to remove me entirely from the legacy I had a right to. To erase me. The room felt suddenly smaller. My hands shook, my chest tightened. They had not only humiliated me at Christmas dinner, they had tried to erase my existence from the life I had built alongside them. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every bit of love I had poured into my family, they wanted it gone, invisible, forgotten. But I wasn't invisible. And I wasn't powerless. I leaned back in my chair and let the reality settle. The truth of their actions was undeniable. Adam's voice in the hallway, Melissa's smug laughter, the judgment of their guests, it all made sense now. They had thought I would remain obedient, silent, compliant. They had thought I would beg, grovel, and submit, but tonight, I had a choice. And I chose me. I thought of the years I had spent hoping my son would recognize my efforts, my sacrifices, my love. And I realized that hoping for recognition had allowed them to control me. To manipulate me. To humiliate me in ways no mother should endure. I picked up the envelope again and held it close. My mind raced. Every move I made from this point forward would matter. Every choice, every action, every word I had to be deliberate. And the first step was clear. I would confront them. I would demand accountability. I would no longer be silent. The door creaked behind me. My heart jumped. Adam's shadow appeared again, this time hesitant, cautious. "You shouldn't have opened that," he said, voice low and tense. I looked at him calmly. "No, Adam, I had to. You've been hiding from me for years. Every lie, every betrayal, you've kept me in the dark. But now I see everything." His expression faltered. I saw panic flash across his face, quickly replaced by defensiveness. "Mom." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted, holding up the papers. "You thought you could humiliate me, erase me, manipulate me. But I've seen everything. And tonight, nothing you say or do can stop what's coming next." He swallowed hard. His hands twitched. He knew the power had shifted. For years he had controlled me with fear and silence. Tonight, I held the upper hand. I rose slowly, my chair scraping against the floor, echoing in the quiet apartment. I won't be manipulated. I won't be silenced. And I certainly won't allow you or Melissa to disrespect me again. Adam's eyes widened. "Mom, you don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," I said, my voice firm. "I'm reclaiming my life. I'm reclaiming my dignity. And if that means confronting the lies, exposing the truth, and facing whatever consequences come, then so be it." I could see him falter. He had underestimated me. He had underestimated the power of a mother scorned, of a woman who had endured humiliation and betrayal but refused to be broken. I took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch. "Tonight, you learned something important, Adam. You learned that the person you tried to erase cannot be silenced. You learned that the truth always finds its way." The envelope felt heavier now, not with the weight of secrets, but with the promise of justice. I didn't know exactly how the next few days would unfold, but I knew one thing. I had finally taken control. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from fear. Free from manipulation. Free from the shadows of a family that had tried to diminish me. And as I looked at Adam standing there, frozen and unsure, I realized that the reckoning had only just begun. Because what was hidden, what was stolen, what was denied to me, it was all about to be reclaimed. And this time, nothing, no intimidation, no lies, no betrayal could stop me. The next morning, I woke with a sense of purpose. The envelope sat on the table beside me, like a silent witness to everything Adam and Melissa had tried to hide. I had spent the night reading, rereading, piecing together the puzzle, and now I knew what had to be done. I wasn't just confronting them, I was reclaiming my life, my dignity, and everything I had been denied. I took a deep breath and drove back to their house. The city streets were quiet, the cold December air biting through my coat, but I felt no fear. I had faced humiliation, betrayal, and secrets worse than I could have imagined. Fear was no longer mine to carry. The door opened before I even knocked. Melissa stood there, her smile polite but forced, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Adam lingered behind her, posture stiff, like a man anticipating defeat. "Mom," Adam began, voice tight. "You shouldn't be here." I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the familiar house. Every corner, every shadow, seemed to whisper betrayal, but I walked with confidence. "I am here," I said firmly, "because you need to see the truth. Because tonight, nothing is hidden. Nothing is safe." Melissa's smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice carefully controlled, but there was an edge of panic beneath it. I placed the envelope on the dining table, the same table where they had humiliated me just hours ago. The papers spilled slightly as I let them fall. I looked at Adam, and for the first time in years, I saw fear reflected in his eyes. "Do you remember last night?" I asked, my voice calm, but cutting. "Do you remember how you yelled at me in front of your guests? How Melissa laughed at me? How did you try to erase me from your lives?" Adam opened his mouth to respond, but I raised a hand. "Save it. I've read everything. Every letter, every receipt, every photograph, every manipulated moment. I know what you've done. I know what you planned, and now it ends." Melissa's face went pale. She took a step back, eyes darting to the envelope, then to Adam. "Mom, please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "You thought you could humiliate me, erase me, and manipulate me. But I've seen the truth. And now, you will face it." Adam's hands clenched into fists. "You can't do this. It's our house. Our money. Everything is ours." I smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "Everything was ours, Adam. Everything I helped build. Everything I sacrificed for. Everything I protected. You've tried to take it all. But you underestimated me. You underestimated the mother you thought you could control. And tonight you'll see that your power over me is gone." Melissa stepped forward, voice shaking. "Mom, please. Don't make this worse." I shook my head. "No, Melissa. You made it worse the moment you humiliated me last night. You chose to side with betrayal over family. You chose cruelty over love. And now you will face the consequences." Adam took a step toward me, anger and desperation battling across his face. "Mom, don't. Think about what you're doing." I held up my hand, letting the envelope catch the light. "I am thinking, Adam. I'm thinking about every year you disrespected me, every lie you told, every attempt to diminish me. I am thinking about justice. And this," I tapped the envelope, "is the beginning." The room was silent, heavy with tension. I could hear their shallow breaths, the faint creak of the floorboards, the distant hum of traffic outside. The power had shifted. The mother they tried to break was standing taller than ever, and they knew it. I placed the envelope fully on the table and opened it deliberately, letting the contents spill out. Receipts, letters, photographs, all proof of manipulation, betrayal, and deceit. Adam's face went white. Melissa's hand flew to her mouth. "Do you see now?" I asked, voice steady, cutting through their silence. "Every lie. Every secret. Every attempt to erase me from your lives. I have proof. And you will answer for it. Adam tried to snatch the papers, but I stepped back, holding the envelope firmly. No, Adam, this isn't about fighting or hiding. This is about facing the truth. And I'm done hiding. I'm done obeying. I'm done sacrificing myself for people who don't value me. Melissa's voice trembled. Mom, please, we can fix this. We can talk. I shook my head. No, talking is what allowed this to happen. Silence allowed you to humiliate me, to manipulate me, to betray me. Tonight, silence is over. Adam's hands shook visibly now. Mom, please, don't ruin everything. I took a step forward, leaning slightly over the table, looking him directly in the eyes. You don't get to decide what I do anymore. I choose myself. I choose my life, my dignity, my truth. And everything you tried to hide from me will now be seen by those who need to know the truth. And yes, Adam, that includes everyone involved. Melissa gasped. Adam's mouth opened, but no words came. The room felt like it had contracted, the air thick with fear, regret, and tension. I took a deep breath, standing tall, resolute. You wanted me out. You humiliated me. You laughed at me. You thought I would beg, grovel, and vanish. But I am not vanishing. I am reclaiming what is mine, my life, my respect, and my voice. Adam whispered, almost pleading, Mom, you don't know what this will do. I smiled, faintly, coldly. I know exactly what it will do. It will finally show you what happens when the person you tried to erase decides she's done being erased. You will live with the truth. And I will live in peace. I turned, walking toward the door, the envelope still clutched firmly in my hand. For the first time, I felt the weight of the past lift, replaced by a surge of freedom. Behind me, the silence was deafening. The humiliation, the anger, the betrayal, they had nowhere to hide. And as I stepped outside into the cold night air, I realized something profound. This confrontation wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my life. And nothing, no fear, no guilt, no manipulation would ever control me again. Because tonight, I didn't just confront them. I confronted every lie, every betrayal, every attempt to erase me. And I won. The reckoning had begun. The morning after the confrontation, the house felt different. Not quieter, no, there was still tension, but charged, like the air before a storm breaks. I had left Adam and Melissa with the truth laid bare, the envelope full of evidence of their betrayal spilling across the table. And now, for the first time in years, I felt free. I sat in my living room, the envelope open on the coffee table, letting the sun catch the papers. The light felt warm, almost cleansing, illuminating the years of lies and manipulations. I didn't need to rush. They had been confronted. The truth had been delivered. And I finally understood that justice didn't always come from anger, it came from clarity. Courage and action. The phone rang, startling me. It was my lawyer. Good morning, I said, my voice steady, confident. I have something you need to see. After a long discussion, it became clear that Adam and Melissa's attempts to exclude me from the inheritance and manipulate the family finances were not only cruel, they were legally questionable. With the envelope as proof, I could reclaim control over what was rightfully mine. I realized that the battle I had feared would never end if I stayed silent. But speaking up, acting, asserting myself, it was liberating. By the afternoon, letters and calls began arriving from relatives and family friends. Many had suspected something was wrong but had never dared to confront Adam or Melissa. Now, armed with the truth, they reached out, offering support, apologies, and in some cases, relief that they weren't alone in recognizing the betrayal. I took a deep breath. It was overwhelming, but it was also validating. Every insult, every humiliation, every tear I had shed, it had a purpose now. It had led to truth, clarity, and restoration. That evening, I returned to the house. Adam and Melissa had been quiet since the confrontation, but I wanted closure. Not revenge, not anger, but clarity for myself. I walked in confidently, holding the envelope. Adam looked up, guilt written across his face. Melissa avoided my eyes. Mom, Adam began hesitantly. I didn't realize how much. I held up a hand. Adam, Melissa, stop. I'm not here for excuses. I'm here for closure. They remained silent, tense. I continued. What you did was cruel. What you tried to hide was deceitful. And yes, you humiliated me. But this isn't about revenge. This is about me reclaiming my life. Melissa swallowed hard. Mom, I'm sorry. I never meant. I shook my head. Apologies are words. Actions are what matter. Tonight, you have the chance to change. But know this. I will no longer allow anyone to manipulate, humiliate, or erase me from my own life. I am done being invisible. The silence stretched. Adam's face fell. Melissa's hands trembled slightly. And in that moment, I realized the power shift was complete. I wasn't just standing. I was rising. Weeks passed. With the evidence in the envelope, legal matters were addressed swiftly. I reclaimed my rightful inheritance and ensured that Adam and Melissa could no longer misuse what I had worked for, supported and protected for decades. More importantly, I reclaimed something no money could buy: respect. Respect from my family, from my friends, and most importantly from myself. I realized that for years, I had allowed fear of confrontation and desire for approval to dominate my life. Now I was free. The final confrontation had not been easy. It had been raw, emotional, and painful. But it was necessary. And in facing the betrayal directly, I found strength I didn't know I had. I looked around my living room. At the sunlight spilling across the floor, the envelope now empty and set aside. It symbolized the end of manipulation, the end of cruelty, and the beginning of something new. I realized something profound. Heartbreak, betrayal, and humiliation do not have to define us. They can be the very force that pushes us to rise, to reclaim our voice, to demand respect, and to live fully on our own terms. I picked up my phone and sent a message to a few close friends. It's over. I am finally free. And it feels amazing. I walked to the window, letting the winter breeze brush my face. The cold air felt sharp, clean, invigorating. I smiled a real, unguarded smile. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. I was thriving. And I knew, without a doubt, that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them with courage, with clarity, and with the unwavering knowledge that I had taken my power back. Because tonight, tomorrow, and every day after, I would live for myself, not for their approval. Not for their manipulation, not for their lies. I had been humiliated, betrayed, and nearly erased, but I had returned. Stronger, wiser, and unstoppable. The envelope, once a symbol of fear, had become a symbol of victory. And as I stepped into my future, I felt an unshakable truth. No one, not Adam, not Melissa, not anyone could ever take my life, my dignity, or my voice from me again. I was free, and this time, I was unstoppable. Have you faced betrayal or heartbreak in your family? Share your story in the comments. It might just heal someone else. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to never miss another emotional true story that inspires strength and healing.